This is Carl Stafford, Extension Agent in Culpeper, Virginia, and livestock forages are my appreciation in agriculture and the soils. I'm for soil because what it does for that system that I'm so appreciative of, pastures, and you get on into no-till crops as well. That soil matters everything to the production of that system and soil life and what the benefits of storing carbon, organic matter, productivity, moisture, retention. So I am for soil because it does a lot for agriculture.
Welcome to another edition of For the Soil, a conversation. I'm your host, Jeff Ishii, and we're going to be doing something a little bit differently this week, and I'm going to explain that in just a moment. But first of all, I wanted to refer everyone to our website, forthesoil.org. And if you click on the blog menu there at the top, you will find just a number of resources available to help you improve your own soil health. Just looking at some of the subjects covered on the blog, we have blog entries on cover crops, on farming, on gardening, urban and suburban yards, community health, growing native plants, and co-benefits of soil health. So just go to the website at forthesoil.org, and right there at the top you'll see the menu bar, and on the far right-hand side, just click on blog, and I think you'll be surprised, pleasantly surprised, we hope, at the number of resources available to you there at the website forthesoil.org. Now let's get to this week's For the Soil podcast. Welcome once again to For the Soil, a conversation. I'm your host, Jeff Ishii, and first of all, I need to apologize. I told you I was going to say something, and then I didn't say it. Right there at the tease at the beginning of the podcast, I said that I was going to tell you that this podcast is very different, and I was going to tell you why, and then I failed to tell you that. Sorry about that, but now I will tell you why this podcast is very different, because we're talking with multiple guests, and this is a combination of interviews, of conversations, if you will, that we had this past winter with some of the keynote speakers at conferences around the Commonwealth of Virginia. You know, your keynote speakers are very busy people. They make these presentations on the stage, but as soon as they come off a stage, they're rushed by the audience who has a million questions, and it's rare if you can get more than 1 or 2 minutes with a keynote speaker to ask your question or to have anything resembling a conversation. So that's what we're doing today. So these are abbreviated conversations with keynote speakers from farm and soil health conferences we attended this past winter. And the first is Mr. Ray Archuleta. He is a renowned soil health expert, and we caught up with Ray just outside the building. Soon as he came off the stage, we took him outside, and well, here's what happened. Over here in my office by the dumpster.
That was my office for a long time. As a government employee, that's why I was always in the dumpster. I was always in trouble.
All right, I'll make this quick.
Okay.
Very quick. Ray Archuleta here in Virginia today, talking with Virginia farmers about no-till agriculture, the importance of cover crops. Can you summarize what your goals with your presentation were?
My goal was to teach the farmer, if we emulate the natural system, she's always covered, she's diverse, and she's got animals in it. If we farm more like she does, they'll save money. They'll reduce the cost. We'll have healthier soil, healthier plant, healthier animal. It's a really simple message. How do we emulate nature?
I learned a new word during your presentation today. I've heard the word homicide. I've heard the word suicide. I've heard the word herbicide. I've heard the word pesticide. But I had never heard the word tillage-icide.
Yeah.
Tell us about that word. What does it mean?
The word side means to kill. Tillage kills biology. It disrupts. It's a great disruptor. And it actually continues to diminish. If you keep using it all the time, it diminishes the fungi. It diminishes the habitat. So it kills. At the end, it kills. And we want to use life in our systems, not death. So regenerative agriculture is about bringing more life into the system.
Yeah. You had some amazing slides and graphics and videos there that demonstrated that if farmers really focus on what they're doing and think about what they're doing, they can change the big picture, the climate.
They can change everything. They can change the local community. They can change their bank account. They can change the health of the people. Healthier food comes from a healthy soil. Healthy soil, healthy plant, healthy animal, healthy human, healthy climate. It's all connected.
Very good. Anything else you'd like to add, Ray?
One of the most important things people can do is find out where their food is being raised. Demand it. Know your farmer. And push for regenerative agriculture. Tell them you want food that's raised the way nature does it. And to remember, let thy food be thy medicine. The healthier our food, the less we go to the doctor. And when I traveled through Europe, the people in Europe in general were thinner, they were healthier, the food was better than our United States. So be careful what you put in your mouth and start being well learned about how our planet works.
Thank you so much for talking with Virginia farmers today.
Thank you.
And that was our brief conversation with Mr. Ray Archuleta. And we were very fortunate to grab 2 or 3 minutes with Ray. He is one of the most demanded public speakers in all of North America. Ray Archuleta is a certified professional soil scientist with the Soil Science Society of America, more than 30 years experience as a soil conservationist and conservation agronomist, and he is retired from the USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service and a big proponent of regenerative agriculture, Mr. Ray Archuleta. And once again, we were very fortunate just to grab 2 or 3 minutes with Mr. Archuleta. Our next segment is with Dr. Heather Corner. She is with the Common Grain Alliance, which began as an organization in Virginia and now has spread throughout the Mid-Atlantic region. We caught up with Dr. Heather Corner at the Virginia Farm to Table Conference that was held at Weir's Cave in December of 2023. We're just going to have a brief conversation about your presentation today. Dr. Heather Corner, you're with Common Grain Alliance. First of all, describe that organization and its history.
Common Grain Alliance was founded in 2018 by 13 people who are interested in a grain economy where they could actually eat grain that was grown in the Mid-Atlantic. We were farmers and millers, bakers, home bakers, and just interested people, frankly. And we weren't really sure how we were going to do it, but we knew that it was possible as long as we started to get to know each other.
Growing grain here in the Mid-Atlantic region is nothing new. It has a documented history.
Yes, it certainly does. The Shenandoah Valley was the breadbasket of the Confederacy, and in the 19th century, Virginia grew enough enough wheat to export. So it's certainly evidenced in the infrastructure that is available on the landscape and in the farms that still are farming today.
You made a very interesting comment during your presentation about these days, or at least since the 1990s, and the farm-to-table movement has progressed, it's very easy to find locally grown tomatoes, but you can't find locally grown wheat or rye.
That's correct. And it's a little bit surprising that such an important food group as grains has been left out of the local food economy, but that's what the Common Grain Alliance is here to fix.
And you also talked about soil health quite a bit in your presentation. So talk about that just a little bit, about the relationship between growing grains, specifically small grains, I presume, and soil health.
Well, grains are an essential part of the soil health puzzle for any kind of cropping operation, and I would also argue for animal-based operations too, because they're one of the few types of annual crops that can be grown 12 months of the year, keeping the soils covered and protected from erosion and weathering, while adding their own root exudates and carbon-rich straw to the soils. There really isn't another group of annual plants that can do that. Perennials can do that, but perennials don't fit into every farming system, and so that is one of the main pathways we can see people introducing grain to existing operations is for the purpose of improving their soil health, and then if they can manage to harvest it because there is enough infrastructure in the community to support them in the harvesting, cleaning, and marketing of their grain, then they can add an additional enterprise to their farm, which makes their farm more resilient and the rural community more resilient.
We're talking today with Dr. Heather Corner with the Common Grain Allowance, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the organization in depth. You have a website. What would people find at that website?
At the website, you'll find information about the Common Grain Alliance, about our quarterly meetings, which happen throughout the region. But you'll also find some resources for home bakers. There'll be recipes that help guide you through using local grains that you can get from millers and bakers. You'll find some resources for farmers, which are getting rolled out over the next few months, in which we talk about all the soil health benefits and the ways that you can add grain to a small or mid-sized farm. And you'll also find a map of Common Grain Alliance members where you can look at your region and see who are the bakers, millers, farmers who are actively trying to promote regional grain.
And who is growing blue Claridge corn? That really got my attention because 25 years ago I used to grow blue Claridge corn. And for people who don't know what that is, it is an heirloom variety of corn that has been grown for literally hundreds of years in the Mid-Atlantic region. And I suspect that there's a lot of owners of small chicken flocks that might want something special for their flock of hens. Mm-hmm. So would the Common Grain Alliance be a resource in that regard?
Definitely. It's a resource for finding seed, for finding other farmers who are growing crops. If you're curious about blue carriage corn, the Common Grain Alliance can connect you to people who grow it in this region and give you tips on how to do it. Our members got to where they were, and our organization has gotten to where we are because of sharing of information and resources like that, and we intend to continue to do that. So please reach out.
Anything else you'd like to add, either about soil health or about the Common Grain Alliance?
I just want to say that growing grain is not easy, but there are pathways to do it where you don't need large investments in land and resources, and that's what we're here to help facilitate.
And that was our brief conversation with Dr. Heather Corner, taking place in Weir's Cave, Virginia, at the annual conference of the Virginia Farm to Table Conference. And we certainly enjoyed that conversation with Dr. Heather Corner. If you haven't visited the website of the Common Grain Alliance, it is a very interesting organization of farmers, bakers, millers, and others who are interested in small grains right here in our region. And also invite you to visit their YouTube page. Yes, they have their own YouTube channel. It's called Common Grain Alliance, and there's numerous videos on there about small grain production, growing and processing, marketing your small grains, also growing grains for soil health, all about stone ground milling, and even backyard rice production. I've never tried growing rice, but there's a video on their website about backyard rice production. Once again, that's the YouTube channel. Just look up Common Grain Alliance, and I think you'll find that very interesting. And I hope that you found this whole episode interesting. Once again, it is kind of piecemeal because oftentimes when we talk with keynote speakers and other people around the region, we don't have the time for an entire episode, so we literally just grab what we can and run with it, and that's exactly what we did with this episode. Oh, one other reminder. Sometimes, we need to get back to basics, and someone recently asked, you talk about the 4 core principles of soil health. What are the 4 core principles? Well, let's go over them right now. Number 1, keep soil covered. Number 2, minimize disturbance in the soil. Number 3, maximize living roots. And number 4, energize with diversity. And you can find all sorts of information about the 4 core principles of soil health at our website, forthesoil.org. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'm Jeff Ishii for the Soil. For the Soil, a Conversation is made possible with funding support from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation and the Agua Fund. Other partners include the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Natural Resources Conservation Service, Virginia Cooperative Extension, Virginia State University, Virginia Department of Conservation and Recreation, and partners of the Virginia Soil Health Coalition. Views expressed on this podcast are those of each individual guest. To download a copy of this or any other episode, visit the website forthesoil.org, and if you should have a specific question about soil health, just contact your local extension office, your local USDA Service Center, or a Soil and Water Conservation District office. Music used during today's program was provided courtesy of The Flip Charts, all rights reserved. For the Soil, a Conversation is produced by On the Farm Radio in collaboration with Virginia Tech. I'm your host, Jeff Ishii.